great wealth of life on this planet is a forwardly operative, metabolic, and intelligent regenerating system. And if we don't comprehend and realize our potential ability to support all life forever, we are cosmically bankrupt. With those powerful words, architect and visionary Buckminster Fuller challenged us to build a world that works for 100% of humanity in the shortest possible time. And he shone a light on what must become our imperative in business, technology, healthcare, and all of the rest of our lives. So I'm here to share the story of one of the most beautiful technologies that's been honed over millennia by Mother Nature, and that's operative right this minute in your bodies, that can help us realize that vision and help us to also get physical. So, once upon a time, 1.5 billion years ago, a life-altering, catalytic union came to pass. Up until then, Earth had been a very different place. There was no oxygen, there was no ozone layer, just lots of volcanic activity and lightning and thunder. And in these harsh conditions, the first forms of life that appeared were two kinds of single-celled organisms called archaea and bacteria. Over time, some of the bacteria developed the capacity for photosynthesis, so taking sunlight, combining that with carbon dioxide to produce food and release oxygen. And this created an oxygen revolution. Together, archaea and bacteria stabilized the Earth's atmosphere, and they created the conditions for new oxygen-breathing life forms to appear. As biologist Janine Benyus has so beautifully said, the purpose of life is to create conditions conducive to life and for new life. The most powerful lesson in sustainability, 3.6 billion years and counting. So let's go back to that catalytic meeting. A particular bacterium caught the eye of a particular archaean. Now, this bacterium was especially alluring because it had the capacity to break down food using oxygen and to release energy, and this is something that the archaean lacked. And the archaean was clearly smitten because before you could say evolution, it had engulfed the bacterium into its body. Now, scientists call this endosymbiosis, and they hail it as the ultimate merger and acquisition. The bacterium now had a safe place to live, and the archaean had a steady source of energy. I like to think of it as one of the most beautiful and enduring love stories. You see, that engulfed bacterium went on to become present-day mitochondria in all cells of plants, animals, and humans. Mitochondria, the seat of energy, metabolism, and regeneration that has powered the evolution of all complex life on Earth. Now, I trained as a physician, and I'm constantly in awe of the human body. It's truly a wonderland. Every single day, 14 quadrillion mitochondria, whether you're awake, dreaming, or sleeping, they power more than 30 trillion cells in your body. And they fuel the miracle of your everyday life experience. Everything from enjoying a beautiful meal, to holding your loved ones, to saving the day at the office with a brilliant idea. Your heart muscle cells have the most number of mitochondria, 5,000 per cell, which allow it to beat 100,000 times every single day and pump 5.6 liters of blood 3 times per minute through your body. That's traversing a distance of 19,000 kilometers every single day. In addition to being the container for your sweetest joys, the most profound sorrows, courage in the face of fear, and the fiercest love. Despite being the owners of such sublime beauty, we find ourselves in a peculiar predicament in life and business. In the Anthropocene, this human life has created the conditions for its own demise and that of planetary destruction. Climate change, global warming, ocean acidification, soil depletion, deforestation, social injustice. Our planetary house is clearly on fire. But so are we. And this internal personal energy crisis is not just metaphorical, it's biologically literal. And it's a result of the breakdown of metabolism in our mitochondria. Metabolism is just a fancy word for all the hundreds of thousands of life-sustaining reactions that are taking place right this minute in your bodies that break down food to release energy and use that energy to build your body and to remove waste from it. And when metabolism breaks down, levels of cellular inflammation, that smoldering fire in your cells, goes up. Inflammation is the body's natural immune response to any kind of injury. So think about all the physical, mental, emotional, and environmental stresses that you put on yourself every single day as you navigate through your frenzied lives. And just like carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere, levels of cellular inflammation in our body are at an all-time high. Inflammation is a starting point for all of the chronic diseases that you and I worry about for ourselves, for our families, and our teams. Heart disease, stroke, cancer, diabetes, obesity, autoimmune disorders, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and mental health disorders like depression and anxiety. In fact, 3 out of 4 of us at this conference today and globally will suffer from one of these diseases during our lifetimes. But here's the worst part. Not only is inflammation the starting point for disease, research shows that even low levels of inflammation affect our moment-to-moment decision-making. You heard that right. Even low levels of inflammation affect our moment-to-moment decision-making. And this is because biologically, inflammation is perceived by the body as a threat to its survival. So it makes us want to grab and hold on to whatever resources we might have right in front of us. So this makes us more impulsive. We are unable to delay gratification. We resort to short-termism. We get stuck in old patterns of thinking and behavior. And in this tunnel-visioned, self-focused state, trust and empathy for those around us crumbles, and we don't have access to our best ideas. Think about the implications of this inflammation and internal personal energy crisis for us as individuals, as consumers, as businesses, and as politicians. Rampant consumerism, the desire for unmitigated growth at all cost, a loss of trust in each other, in state and institutions, addiction to our technology, addiction of all kinds, and social injustice. It's not really any surprise then that despite having access to the best technology and resources, we are not moving at the speed and scale required to meet our health and sustainability targets. As businesses and as individuals, we put off our health and well-being for the tomorrow that never comes. And we show up at work every single day with the best of intentions to have meaningful impact. But we're tired, we're stressed, we're depressed, we're lonely. We reach for the junk and processed foods and caffeine to keep us awake during the day, and alcohol and medications to lull us into some semblance of rest at night. All the while repeating old behaviors, burning ourselves out, and holding on to old systems that are nothing but a reflection of our inner, degenerative, unsustainable selves. At work, this is reflected in skyrocketing rates of stress and burnout and disease that account for the majority of our healthcare spend, and decreasing levels of productivity and creativity and employee engagement. And even though the pandemic and the Great Resignation and the Great Reset helped to shine a light on the importance of well-being in the workplace, we haven't really seen a significant shift in the levels of this burnout and internal personal energy crisis. And this is because we have forgotten to address one of the key root causes, which is biological. And all roads point to mitochondrial health. When it comes to mitochondrial health, though, I have good news, and I have even better news. So the good news is that we have the science. We know what works. And the even better news is that when we actually start to make changes in our lifestyle to address our mitochondrial health, the data show that we can prevent 80 to 90% of all those horrible diseases that I just talked about, in addition to making wiser moment-to-moment decisions for ourselves, our businesses, and the planet. And this is exactly the kind of work that I do with teams and organizations, where we take the best evidence-based practices from lifestyle medicine, from behavior change and neuroscience, and use that to make our biology work for us and not against us. And once we start to make those changes, and once we start to take care of our lifestyles and our mitochondrial health, the connections between personal and planetary health become abundantly clear. So for example, we learn that when mitochondria break down food, the quality and quantity of the energy that they produce directly determines the quality and quantity of our focus, our creativity, our endurance in the workplace, which in turn depends upon the quality and quantity of the food on our plate. Now, mitochondria love whole foods grown in microbiome-rich soils, because from an evolutionary perspective, that's where the energy conversion is the most efficient. So think of those fuels as like the clean, renewable energy for your cells. Junk and processed foods, on the other hand, that's kind of like burning fossil fuels in your cell, because they release a lot of inflammatory byproducts. But just like outer sustainability is so much more than just carbon dioxide and fossil fuels, it's about repair and regeneration and reforestation and social justice and circular economies. So too, mitochondria are so much more than just energy-producing cell batteries. Think of them instead as the mastermind that balances growth versus repair in your body. And they help to keep the body within a very narrow, safe operating zone called homeostasis. It's a narrow band of pH and temperature beyond which our cells don't survive. And in order to do this, mitochondria are listening to the rhythm of our lives, and they are controlling up to 2/3 of our epigenetics. Epigenetics is a mechanism that decides which one of our genes is turned on or off at any given instant. So even right here, right now, your mitochondria are listening. They're listening to the rhythm of our lives. How we eat, how we move, how we sleep, how we manage our stress, the environmental pollutants that we expose ourselves to, the social interactions that we have, whether or not we spend time in nature. And they take all this information and stimuli, and they act as this dynamic interface. They're truly a biological microchip in our cells, and translate that information into changes like DNA methylation and histone modifications on our genome. And what that translates into is either increase or decrease in inflammation, or health, or disease. And so this is how our outer ecology speaks to our inner ecology. And this kind of interdependence makes it really clear that we can't really separate personal from planetary health. Mitochondria don't work in isolation. They track the movement of the sun in the sky. So in the morning when we wake up and the sun is out, they turn on our circadian rhythm, which is this beautiful symphony of gene expression that's optimized for growth. So this is a time to eat, move, and build. And then in the evening, as the sun sets, the music changes. And a whole other set of gene expression and metabolic reactions comes online, which is optimized for rest and repair. This is a time to sleep and to dream. Mitochondria also run some of the most efficient circular economies in our cells. So when cells get old or break down, they take that and convert it into new sources of energy and building blocks for our cells. And mitochondria are also responsible for apoptosis, which is programmed cell death. So when cells die, they're immediately replaced by new ones. Your bodies have an incredible capacity for regeneration. Just in this past second, 10,000 of your lymphocytes, a type of white blood cell, were just replaced. And your gut lining renews itself every 2 to 3 days. Now, while doing all of these things, mitochondria are constantly conferring and collaborating with our microbiome, the trillions of bacteria, viruses, and fungi that live on and inside our bodies and our gut. And together, our microbiome and mitochondria are responsible and crucial for digestion, for our immunity, for regeneration, and for our mental health. They're responsible for the production of many hormones and neurotransmitters, including dopamine and serotonin, which determines your mood and motivation every single day. So the more biodiversity there is in soil, the more diversity there is on the food on our plate, the more biodiverse our microbiome becomes, and the better our health. And we can see clearly then that to harm the earth is to literally harm the self. So to put all of this together, mitochondrial health is truly a fractal of planetary health. And when we start to take care of our lifestyles, and when we start to pay attention to our mitochondrial health, we can start to show up with greater focus, greater creativity, and start to make wiser moment-to-moment decisions for ourselves, our businesses, and our planet. In 2022, the Earth for All report, which was a 30-year follow-up to the iconic 1972 Limits to Growth report, calculated that right now we have all the resources that we need to create well-being for all on a stable planet in just one generation. The investment required would only be 2 to 4% of our global income every year. To me, that sounds like a no-brainer. But they left us with this provocation that it remains to be seen whether we, as a collective humanity, will make these turnarounds an actual reality. And this reminds me of what American environmentalist James Speth famously said, that the toughest environmental challenges of our time are not climate change and biodiversity loss, but they're human selfishness, apathy, and greed. And he called for a spiritual and cultural transformation. And in the same vein, in 2022, the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report, for the first time included the need for an inner transition in order to enable the outer sustainability transition. Clearly, we need all the solutions, right? We need the outer technology, we need the AI, we need to do the inner development work. But we must not forget that in a moment of crisis, and we live in an age of polycrisis, we can't outrun our biology. Our behaviors don't rise to the level of our psychology, they fall to the level and quality of our cellular energy. And so with all due respect to James Speth, I think that before a cultural and spiritual transformation, we need to start with a biological and health transformation. It is the root that informs how successful all of our other efforts in business and technology and leadership are going to be. And yet, as humans, we're not simply made of cells, we're made of stories. And for too long, the story around health and sustainability has been a really dismal and disempowering one. It's been unidirectional, only pointing to the downstream deleterious effects of climate change and biodiversity loss on our health. It's time to shift the narrative. It's time to take back our power quite literally and move the paradigm in the other direction by starting with our health, by paying attention to our lifestyle and lowering levels of inflammation and making wiser moment-to-moment decisions, we can make our personal health an asset and not a liability in the sustainability transformation. We can start to move closer to that vision that Bucky Fuller had of creating the world that works for 100% of humanity in the shortest possible time. The greatest wealth of life on this planet is a forwardly operative, metabolic, and intelligent regenerating system. And nature's constantly moving forward to the next best iteration of this system, of this life. More beauty, more complexity, more diversity. And since we are part of nature, as we move forward to this next chapter of our humanity, our health and that of the planet depends on us remembering where we came from. And this sentiment has been beautifully captured by writer D.H. Lawrence when he wrote, "Oh, what a catastrophe for man when he cut himself off from the rhythms of the earth, from the rising and setting of the sun. Oh, what a catastrophe, what a maiming of love when it was made personal, merely personal feeling, taken away from the unison with the sun and the earth and cut off from the magical connections with the solstice and equinox. This is what is wrong with us. We are bleeding at the roots." It's time to remember that life-altering catalytic union 1.5 billion years ago between Archean and bacterium. And to listen to the clarion call, the song of our mitochondria, calling out to us to fall back in love with our biology, to make this next chapter of humanity the most beautiful love story, to once again become the life that creates conditions conducive to all life. Thank you for your attention.